Okay, so this game is called Guild Wars. It was released in 2004 and the last expansion was in 2007. So it ran for quite a few years. It was fairly popular. At one point it was sort of considered a rival to World of Warcraft, but after about 2009 or so, it sort of lost players, and the sequel came out in 2012, which drew a lot of the players away. That game's done fairly well, probably a lot more popular than this one ever was, and well known. But I think this is the better game overall, in my opinion. It's quite different, and I want to try and explain some of the aspects of this game that make it different to other games that are out there, particularly things like Terra Online, World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 2. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. So as I said, the game is about 10 years old now, going on 11 years old. You might be able to tell that the graphics are not so great. They're not really up to standards of modern games. It's starting to show its age, really. But for the time, the graphics were quite realistic, and generally, like, it has quite a realistic style to it. Whereas World of Warcraft and the likes have more of a sort of cartoony style, like a colourful style, without so much detail. The soundtrack on this game is composed by a guy called Jeremy Soule, who also does the track for Skyrim. So he's quite a well-known composer, and that's one good aspect. I'll let you have a listen to it for a second. Okay, so it has a lot of different pieces, and they're fairly memorable. You can pick out certain pieces and you associate them with like different locations. So the soundtrack's really good, relatively speaking. Another area where this game stands out is the lore and the story. So this thing in front of me has a backstory to it, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but this guy is really important. I think it's something like he was one of the first creatures in the world, possibly. The whole world has a history, and it's fairly easy to understand it, and you learn it as you play through the game. The game is fairly forward in how it explains everything, and it's not like you have to go searching for the information. It explains everything like really well, which is not something that I've found with games like World of Warcraft. And one of the reasons that it explains it well is the quests. Every quest you do is very descriptive, and it's very unique. It's meant to provide something. It's meant to add something to the experience, and it's meant to craft the narrative of the world. It's not just a task for you to do. It's really, you're going on an adventure and you're seeing a little bit more of what's going on in the environment. But also, aside from quests, you've got these things called missions, which is a sort of progressive story, like a main overarching story, which is mostly told through a set of missions. And you find these locations in the world, which there's one I'm at now is one of the first missions in this area. So basically you start in a place called Ascalon, which is like it's basically like a medieval, like standard, like fantasy sort of meadow, castle, woodlands. I'm not really sure what the word is, but yeah, it's like an idyllic place. And as you level up, you get to about level 6 or something. There's a story event which happens, and the landscape is basically transformed. Through a disaster, basically, and it transforms the landscape into this sort of tarnished, like burning, massive wasteland. And then, like several years later, you kind of start fighting back again, and what you're trying to do is escape from this place, or try and reclaim it and try and restore it back to how it was before. But you sort of progressively realise that that's not sort of possible, and the enemies that caused the disaster in the first place are still attacking you. So eventually you kind of have to flee from this area. But this is one of the first missions where it kind of shows you the fight against these creatures. So I'll just show you this, and it has cutscenes. Every mission has start and end cutscenes, and it's very well explained, like what's going on. I think it's voice acted as well. It's all scripted and everything. I think I'll probably have to get to a certain point before we get a cutscene.